Sniper above Austin. On the night of July 31st, 1966, a 25-year-old University of Texas student named Charles Whitman sat down and began writing. He described violent impulses he could not explain. He wrote that he intended to kill his wife and his mother. Then he did both. By 3 a.m. on August 1st, both women were dead in their homes. Whitman drove back, packed a Marine-issue footlocker with rifles, handguns, a shotgun, and 700 rounds of ammunition, and added food and supplies as if preparing for a siege. He arrived on campus at approximately 11:30 that morning, dressed in coveralls, wheeling the footlocker on a dolly. He told the security guard he was there to deliver equipment. He rode the elevator to the top floor, climbed the remaining stairs, and emerged into the reception area of the observation deck. He immediately bludgeoned the receptionist with the stock of his shotgun. He shot and killed 2 people climbing the stairs behind him. He barricaded the door. Then he stepped out onto the deck, 230 feet above the ground, and spread his weapons along the rail. At approximately 11:48 in the morning, he fired his first shot. He had a clear line of sight across an area the size of 5 city blocks. People walking across campus had nowhere to hide. Within the first 15 to 20 minutes, most of the casualties were already down. He continued firing for 96 minutes. Roughly 130 law enforcement officers converged on the scene, along with armed civilians who came on their own. The return fire forced Whitman behind the walls, limiting his range. Austin police officers Ramiro Martinez and Houston McCoy reached the observation deck and cornered him. Both men fired. Whitman was killed on the deck. 14 people died on campus that day. 1 more victim died a week later. A man shot at age 23 died from his injuries 35 years later, and his death was officially ruled a homicide. Including his wife and mother, Whitman killed 17 people in total. An autopsy revealed a small brain tumor. A commission of experts examined all available evidence. They could not determine that it caused the attack. Primary School, Scotland. On the morning of March 13th, 1996, a class of 29 5- and 6-year-olds gathered in the gymnasium of Dunblane Primary School in Scotland for their physical education lesson. Their teacher, Gwen Mayer, 45 years old, had taken them in at the start of the school day. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. At approximately 9:30, a 43-year-old man named Thomas Hamilton parked his van outside and walked to a nearby telephone pole. He used a pair of pliers to cut the cables. He then crossed the car park carrying 4 legally owned handguns and 743 rounds of ammunition. He entered the school through a side door near the gymnasium. He walked past the dining room. He pushed through the gymnasium doors. Hamilton fired without hesitation. The Cullen inquiry, the official government investigation, found that he fired indiscriminately and in rapid succession. He first struck 3 adults, including Gwen Mayer, who died protecting her students. He walked in a semicircle, firing at close range. He continued until he had discharged his weapons 105 times across the gymnasium. 2 teachers, Eileen Harold and Mary Blake, shielded children in a cupboard while wounded themselves. When adults and an older student looked into the gym to investigate the noise, Hamilton fired toward them. He then left the gymnasium and fired into a corridor and a mobile classroom. He returned to the gymnasium. He shot himself in the head. The attack lasted approximately 3 to 4 minutes. 16 children, all age 5 or 6, were dead. Teacher Gwen Mayer was dead. 15 students and 3 staff members had been wounded. By 10:35 that morning, ambulances had already reached Sterling Royal Infirmary. Hamilton had held a firearm certificate since 1977. Serving police officers had previously reported him as unsuitable to own firearms. No action had been taken. The Snowdrop petition gathered 750,000 signatures. Parliament responded with legislation banning private ownership of handguns across Great Britain. Café in Tasmania. On the morning of April 28, 1996, Martin Bryant drove to a guest house called Seascape on the outskirts of Port Arthur, Tasmania. He went inside and killed both elderly owners. He then drove to the Port Arthur Historic Site, a tourist destination located approximately 100 kilometers south of Hobart. He sat down at a table on the deck of the Broad Arrow Café and ordered lunch. He ate. When he had finished, he reached into the bag he had brought with him and removed a Colt AR-15 rifle. He stood and began firing. In 15 seconds, 12 people were dead. In total, he killed 20 people inside the cafe. He then walked out into the car park and continued. He killed the drivers of 2 tour buses. He killed several passengers. He killed a mother and her 2 small children. He carjacked a vehicle at the toll booth, killing its occupants first. He drove to a service station, shot a woman dead, and abducted a man. He returned with the hostage to Seascape. There, he engaged police in an 18-hour standoff. He set the guest house on fire. The following morning, as the building burned, he ran from the structure and was arrested. Police later found the body of the hostage inside. Martin Bryant was 28 years old. He never provided a confirmed reason for what he did. His youngest victim was 3 years old. His eldest was over 70. Bryant pleaded guilty to all 35 murders. He was sentenced to 35 life sentences without the possibility of parole. In the weeks that followed, the Australian government enacted the National Firearms Agreement, banning automatic and semi-automatic weapons and launching a gun buyback program that ultimately removed more than 650,000 firearms from circulation. Australia has had no mass shootings since. Classroom chains, Virginia. On April 16, 2007, a 23-year-old Virginia Tech senior named Seung Hui Cho woke before dawn and prepared. He carried 2 semi-automatic handguns and 17 magazines of ammunition. He was dressed. He was ready. At approximately 7:15 in the morning, he entered West Ambler Johnston Hall, a dormitory, and shot 2 students dead. University officials believed it was an isolated domestic incident. No campus-wide alert was issued for more than 2 hours. Between the 2 attacks, Cho walked to the campus post office and mailed a package to NBC News in New York. The package contained photographs and video recordings. At approximately 9:45 in the morning, he entered Norris Hall, an engineering building on the opposite side of campus. He had brought chains with him. He wrapped them through the handles of the main entrance doors and locked them from the inside. When students and faculty heard the noise and tried to flee, the doors would not open. Cho moved through 4 classrooms and a stairwell. He fired 170 shots using a .22 caliber Walther P.22 and a 9mm Glock 19. He killed 30 people. 17 others were shot and survived. 6 more were injured jumping from windows to escape. Police arrived at the building at approximately 9:45. The doors were chained. They forced entry. At approximately 10 in the morning, as officers breached the building, Cho shot himself in the head. 32 people were dead across both attacks. It remains the deadliest school shooting in United States history. Cho had been ordered to seek outpatient mental health treatment in 2005. He never received it. A federal law passed in 2008 required states to report individuals with a history of mental health adjudication to the National Firearms Background Check System. Island Youth Camp. On the afternoon of July 22, 2011, Anders Breivik drove a rented van into the government quarter of Oslo, Norway, and parked it outside the building housing the office of Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg. Inside the van was a 2,100-pound bomb built from fertilizer. He left it and walked away. At 3:25 in the afternoon, the bomb detonated. 8 people were killed. At least 210 were injured. Breivik got into a car and drove approximately 25 miles to the ferry landing at Utoykaya on the edge of Tyrifjorden Lake. He was wearing a homemade police uniform and carrying false identification. He told the ferry operator he needed to cross to the island of Utoya to perform a security check following the Oslo attack. He was allowed aboard. On Utoya, approximately 600 young people were attending a summer camp run by the youth wing of Norway's Labour Party. Most were teenagers. Some were as young as 13. Breivik stepped off the ferry and opened fire. He moved across the island methodically for more than an hour, shooting anyone he encountered. Some campers jumped into the water and swam. He fired at those in the water. He used a police disguise to lure some victims closer before shooting them. A shortage of transport helicopters delayed the police response. Officers arrived on the island at approximately 6:25 in the evening. By then, 69 people on Utoya were dead. 33 others had been wounded. Combined with the Oslo bombing, the total death toll was 77. Breivik surrendered to police without incident. He was tried and found criminally sane. He was sentenced to 21 years of preventive detention, the maximum term in Norway, extendable in 5-year increments if he remains a danger to the public. Concert Night, Nevada. On September 25th, 2017, Stephen Paddock checked into a corner suite on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was 64 years old. He carried more than 10 suitcases up to the room over several days. Housekeepers visited and reported nothing unusual. In that time, Paddock had set up 23 firearms in the suite, including multiple rifles fitted with 12 bump stocks, devices that allow semi-automatic weapons to fire at a rate approaching automatic fire. He used a hammer to break 2 of the suite's windows, opening direct sight lines to the street below. Across the intersection, on a 15-acre lot, approximately 22,000 people had gathered for the final night of the Route 91 Harvest Country Music Festival. Country music star Jason Aldean had taken the stage. At approximately 10:05 in the evening, Paddock fired through his suite door, striking security guard Jesus Campos in the leg. Campos radioed the hotel and took cover. At the same moment, Paddock opened fire on the crowd below. He fired more than 1,000 rounds. The shooting continued for approximately 10 minutes until approximately 10:15. 60 people were killed. At least 413 were wounded by gunfire. The panic caused by the attack brought the total number of injured to approximately 867. A SWAT team breached the suite door at approximately 11:20 that night. Paddock was found dead inside from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The incident is the deadliest mass shooting by a lone gunman in American history. A 10-month joint investigation by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the FBI concluded in 2018. His motive was never determined. Bump stocks were banned by the United States Department of Justice in December 2018. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.